Call the Ways and Means Committee meeting to order. Sharita, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Vaccaro,
Present.
Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Murphy,
Here.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Present.
Alderman Muhammad,
Here.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Chairman Vollmer.
Present.
6 present, you have 4.
All right, thank you very much, Sharita. We will hold the excused alderman until at the end of the meeting. I have gotten some there, but there's one or two that might be coming. We move for approval of the minutes from November 21st, 2019.
So I would motion that we
Entertain a
approve the
motion.
minutes. Yeah, I'll motion.
Second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Murphy,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Chairman Vollmer.
Aye.
6 aye votes.
All right, thank you very much. We have 2 bills before us today, 101 from Alderman Muhammad and 141 from Alderman Boyd, who's supposed to be here because we can knock his out, him not being on the committee and him being senior, but if he's not here,
I mean, if you don't care, I mean, any one of us could handle it for him. It's just 2 tow trucks.
There he
here he
is.
is
Oh,
now.
there's Jeff. Okay.
Please take the hot seat, Alderman Boyd.
Any one of us could
We will
handle
now take up Board Bill 141.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning.
it. Good
Morning.
Flying up those steps.
You're too old to run anymore. You just had a birthday, remember that.
Hustling to be on time. Board Bill 141 is a very simple appropriations bill. $250,000 was allocated for 2 new trucks from the parking commission's budget, but it didn't make it in time to Board Bill number 1. So this is basically a supplemental appropriation.
All right, is there anyone besides you to speak on this?
Nope.
All right.
Pretty simple.
Okay, with that, we'll entertain questions. Alderman Vaccaro, any questions of the sponsor?
No questions.
All right, Alderman Howard. Oh, no, sorry, she's good. Alderman Hubbard.
No questions.
All right, Alderman Murphy.
No, looks good.
Okay, Alderman Spencer.
Nope.
Alderman Muhammad.
No.
Trucks.
Mr. Oldenburg? No. And I have no questions. With that, you're free to close on this, Mr. Boyd.
I ask for your most favorable consideration, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
and members of the committee.
I'll make a motion, we pass Board Bill 141 out with a DPS recommendation.
Okay, hearing that, we'll take roll.
Yeah, because we got somebody.
Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye, yes.
Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy,
Aye.
Yeah, I was,
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Chairman Vollmer.
Aye. With that, we passed Board Bill 141 out, we do pass recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Boyd, for showing up. Go back to sleep.
Question for 2 minutes.
With that, we will now take up Board Bill 101. Alderman Muhammad, please take the hot seat. You have some speakers here, I believe. I'll preface this bill is kind of sweeping. We're going to get a lot of information today. I probably don't plan on taking a vote today. So let's get all the information in, because there's no rush on this, as I understand. This is for next budget season if it would occur. So let's get all the information we can on it.
Absolutely. Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chairman. Board Bill 101 is simple in its nature. It expands the time in which we receive a budget from 60 days to 90 days, and it also gives us more discretionary budget authority over the budget opposite of E&A. It is a charter change. It will go to the voters for a vote since we are changing the charter. It's a very simple board bill. I can entertain questions, or Mr. Paul Payne can come up and tell you more.
So you'd like Mr. Payne to speak at this time?
I mean, unless the committee has questions for me, but
Okay. All right, is
there
there
is.
any questions of the sponsor? We go through the list, we can take off. Alderman Murphy, any questions of the sponsor?
Not at this
Not
time.
this time? All right.
I got it.
Alderwoman Spencer, any questions at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. understand this correctly, this changes the timeline that the board has to approve the budget from 60 days to 90 days. Does it change any of the authority that the Board of Aldermen has with regards to the budget?
Yes, it gives us more discretionary authority over the budget. Right now, we can only decrease. This would give us the authority to add as well.
Can you help me understand how the mechanism through which we would be able to add budget? It simply gives us the authority, or is there a mechanism spelled out in the board bill that kind of walks us through how that happens?
No,
Can you point me to that?
the mechanism is already spelled out in the city charter as it relates to the Ways and Means Committee, which should hold daily committee hearings based on the budget. That's already spelled out. This would just give us the authority to actually add to departments or agencies or offices as we see fit. Right now, we can only take away, we send that back to ENA.
And they
ENA make the
reconcile
final
that.
decision, which I think is archaic, but that's a bigger discussion for a later time.
Joe, I might have a,
One second. Oh, I'm sorry. Anything further?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Carl.
you skipped me.
Well, you usually sit to my left, I can't
I
see you.
know, I thought there was no love, but that's
You're
okay.
sitting on the left
I'll
all
give
the
you
time.
some love, Joe.
Yeah, and he don't like, no, so, no, my question maybe even more could be answered by someone else, but, so if it's gotta go on a ballot for a charter change, and if this waits till the next budget season, then we would almost have to do the charter change now to make it happen before the next budget season. So if we wait to bring this up after the next budget, then this wouldn't be effective till 2 budgets from now. Am I mistaken? Maybe I'm misinterpreting.
As far as the timeline, it depends if it comes out when it would, as far as being on a ballot before the people.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's obviously, the presidential one coming up, but if we wait till the next budget season, which would be,
Well, if it made it out in time to make the November election, it might be, I don't know if it would,
It would have
Yeah.
to make it out by August.
yeah, August, and if it
Okay.
doesn't make it out by
That-
then, you'd have the spring, which maybe we'll push into the next cycle after that.
no, thank you, I
Okay.
was just trying to
The
put.
deadline, the Board of Elections said the deadline is August 25th to be on November 3rd ballot.
Okay. Any further questions, Mr. McCarthy?
No, it was just a time thing.
Okay, all right. All right, Alderman Oldenburg, your turn.
A few questions, yeah.
I'm sorry, Alderman Murphy, I apologize.
No, well, you already
She
said, and
started
I,
Okay.
well, that's all right. And my question would be is like, if we can raise something, where's it going to come from? The budget is already set, you know, so say we want to raise something in some department. We want to give them another $500,000. Where is that gonna come from?
You have to take away from that department,
So what we kind of do now, we rob Peter to pay Paul now,
in a sense.
because we had, the budget is a limited, fixed, you know. Okay, that was just my
In a
question.
sense, but
You know.
the problem, Alderwoman, is we really don't have a say-so in our budget, even as people think. I'm sure people in your own ward think that you have input in the way our budget is set up, our annual operating plan, and we don't. This creates a more transparent process. This board bill here does. There is no other city, no other major city that has a Board of Estimates, which is the most commonly used name. We call it ENA here, but in other cities it was called just the Board of Estimates. New York had it, Chicago had it as well. Kansas City had a form of it with their city manager, their mayor, and several other key positions. Since then, no cities have abolished that position because they know that it is archaic. What I'm trying to do here with this board bill is, and we've talked about this before, this isn't new. We always talk about how the Board of Aldermen needs to have some type of authority and power over the budget. We talk about it, but we never actually act on it. So this board bill is acting on it. And we could play with the numbers of the budget all day, honestly. We can say,
True.
well, we don't know what we're gonna have or what we have. But this, it could be a case of, like last year, when we had a surplus of almost 20 million. So it could be any case like that, but we really don't know. So we could play with the numbers. We can say, well, we can do this now. Really, we can't. Whatever we send to ENA, they can either say no, and oftentimes they actually do. So this changes that, and it gives the legislative body actual input in the process.
Input
Something
and a
we don't have.
vote, you're saying? I mean, we can always input. I can call anybody I want and give my input. But
No.
is it going to matter?
I know, we have an opinion right now.
Yeah,
We don't,
well,
we don't
that's
have
input. I can give input. I can call anybody I
We
want.
disagree on that synonym.
Okay, well,
I think
exactly. Let's
actual-
not play games,
Right,
okay?
we can do that all
But I
day.
said, my point, does
Just
this bill actually give the board, or the Ways and Means Committee, I should say, the power to change something?
Yes,
Okay, that's what I want to know.
yes, it does.
Okay.
Anything further?
No, that's all.
All right, Mr. Oldenburg?
Why not just do away with E&A? If you're going to the voters with the charter amendment, it sounds like that's the goal here, Alderman, of
Now,
this
this,
legislation.
this board bill, is it a goal of mine? Yes, but it's not the
Yeah.
goal of this board bill.
Okay.
I do think that's a part of a conversation though.
So, what's the current budget process timeline? And how
60
does
days.
60 days?
We have 60 days. In the
Correct,
city
so-
charter, it gives us 60 days.
Correct, so effectively, this is 30 days earlier that the Board of E&A is required to provide us with a budget, correct?
Yes.
And what could be achieved in 30 days, being 30 days earlier with a budget?
I don't know, let your imagination run wild. This just gives us more time to actually look at the budget process. Right now, we don't have adequate time to go through the budget line item by line.
I would
item.
disagree with that. I would say the budget division in City Hall is the most open and transparent office that exists. I have called, I've gone in there and I've gotten numbers, I've gotten any
problem-
budget, past budget I've wanted. So let's not hide behind transparency here, that this is something
Alderman, we're
about-
not hiding behind transparency.
We
You
don't
asked
have
me one simple
transparency with the
question.
budget.
You
The budget's
said,
a public
you said, do
document.
we have time as
The
a?
budget's a public
Excuse me,
document.
well, let him,
The budget's a public document.
He's making his
Come on
comments.
here.
Any
Mr.
budget in the
he's
past
making a
year,
comment. You can
any
respond when
budget
he's
in the
done.
past year is a public document that exists. All departments' submissions are all open. You can go into the budget office and receive any kind of number you want at any time, right? So let's, this isn't about necessarily transparency. We're trying to take control of the police department, now the Board of Aldermen is trying to take control of the budget division. So, to sit up here in a testimony and say that the E&A board is archaic, why not go the full way and eliminate that to the voters and say, yeah, if the Board of Aldermen wants control of the budget, we should have control of the budget.
I'll support it.
Thank you for your comments, Alderman. So let me clear some stuff up here. First, you simply turned around the question to apparently like me attacking the budget office, which I wasn't. I think we have a great budget director too, but we're not talking about the budget director, we're talking about the budget process. That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
So yes, right, any alderman individually can go into the budget office and get the numbers. That does not mean that this body, the Board of Aldermen as a collective, has adequate time to go through the budget process as we should. We don't. 60 days is not enough. We need more time. 90 days is not enough. However, we have to be courteous to our budget director because this also puts an impact on his office on how he get the budget done and the numbers that come in the revenue that we have, in the revenue we don't have. So I know that. So 30 days isn't a big change. It's a minor change. So I know the job that our budget director does. In fact, the last budget season, ever since I was elected to the Board of Aldermen, I sat on budget every year I was elected. It's only 3 years now. So I know how the budget process go. In fact, again, this past fiscal season, I tried to give our budget director a deputy director because I know how hard he works. So don't use this board bill to try to attack me saying I don't support our budget division. And bringing up the police division has nothing to do with this board bill, Alderman. Has nothing to do with it whatsoever. Matter of fact, you voted for Board Bill 107 when we perfected it. So I didn't know you had a problem with it.
Brought up authority.
I brought up budget
You brought
authority,
up
you brought up
judge's
policing authority. I want to know
Well,
how does this intertwine with each other?
I was making an example here of
It's a weak example.
over legislative authority.
It's a weak
on the
example.
Board of Aldermen, potentially.
It's
Well, we
weak.
can move on. I'm glad you brought up revenue. Because as you know, revenue estimates are based upon available data, right? Yes or no?
Listening, you can continue.
Okay. Do you know what revenue estimates are based on? The method and the analysis used when we make revenue estimates is all I'm asking. Okay,
Chairman.
I'll give you that one. A majority of the
You're not
analysis.
giving me anything. You are sitting here
It's
asking me
based
if I
on
know how
actuals
budget
that
is
come
set
in.
up, is what you're
So
sitting
we have a
here
difference,
asking me.
we have a difference
You
in
want me to
finance and
respond.
accounting.
Okay, he asked you a question, you didn't answer, now he
When it comes
says he's
to-
moving on, let's take the next.
What are actual numbers, right? And that's as receipts come in, revenue proceeds come in from ideally our major sources of revenue, which are 3 taxes, almost 4 if you add payroll and earnings, right? Property tax and sales tax. In order to form a budget for the next fiscal year, a good majority of the analysis that the budget division does is it relies on what those actual expenses, those actual receipts, both the revenue and expenses that come in from the departments. I worry that we won't have those actuals that come in yet, and we're formulating a budget based on actual numbers we haven't received in the prior year. And that we start this process too early, and then we're in here, right, deliberating on it, and then we receive actual information, what the actual revenues and expenses are, and we've created this Frankenstein or this monster that is gonna maybe even delay our process and delay our deadline of getting in by July 1st. Do you see that as a concern at all, when we're talking about what are actual revenue receipts? And
No.
when they come in?
No, Alderman, because we use data projections. We don't know what the numbers are like until they actually come in. And
Correct.
you are saying that if we extend it to 30 more days out, that this is going to mess up our entire budget process, then I think that's the bigger problem, man. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying we won't have, when formulating the budget division uses actual receipts. That's part of the analysis. They also use growth rates and other things, because in some cases we don't have fourth quarter numbers, fourth quarter actuals. Well, I don't even think we'd have third quarter actuals to be able to formulate the next year's budget if we bring this process up too early.
And that's
I think that's a major concern in terms of accurately forecasting a budget, to have accurate information in front of the Board of Aldermen, which I think is, the goal here too.
Alderman, our
To
budget-
kickstart
our
the
budget
process
changes.
early,
Our
for the
budget
sake of
changes.
kicking it early, makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense of moving up 30 days earlier.
Are you finished?
Sure.
Anything else?
So can I follow, can I just?
1 second, Tamika was out when we started the process, and she's
Okay.
here now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to say that we do need to do something different. I've been down here since 2011, and it was only last session that I was on Ways and Means, because I never really desired to be on it. It seemed like a big headache, because you see all this stuff playing out, and we really, although it's a transparent process, we basically have no say-so. I mean, it's a joke to me. And when we sat here in front of the comptroller, and she was like, some of you all are new on the committee, and you don't have much time to make decisions, and that was horrible. That's horrible for us to have to make decisions when basically somebody just throwing something at you, and then it's all a joke. You want to give this, take away that, and then we huddle and try to negotiate. And it's already set in stone, and I just feel like if we're not gonna have a say-so in it, what's the point? And you can make some projections. I mean, I worked for earnings tax. We knew on average how much we were gonna bring in every year. That's a third of the city's budget. So you can make some projections and start at least thinking about it more, having some conversations about it more. So I don't feel like we are overstepping our boundaries. I feel like if we want to make informed decisions, we should be given enough time to make that decision, because if it's not, then why go through the process? And I feel like this is an archaic way of doing it, and it is hard to make a decision over this much money and how we should cut it up. I mean, needs change, things change, so we should be given more time. I'm not exactly sure if this is the way to do it. To me, even 30 more days is not enough time to me. But I just feel like we need to make some steps in the right direction, because as it stands now, stuff is dumped on our lap, and we have all these departments coming. We hear the same little show every time, and we basically have no say-so to really get anything done. Whatever they give us, that's just what it is. And if that's the case, why go through it? So those are my comments regarding it.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman Boyd. Your turn.
Sorry, I'm late.
It's okay.
I kind of looked over this for a while in regards to that, and this is not the first time that I've been on Ways and Means. This is the second time that I was on it. This time, the process was better. this process was better than it's ever been. The first time I was where you was at, I felt like they gave me all these books, and they were like, okay, now you gotta deal with this. And then they said, well, no, you can take money out, but you can't put money in. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a zoo. So this term has been better because I'm getting more of an understanding of it. But I'm in agreement, if something needs to be done. I don't know about the 30 days because after I started doing more research, I found out that they wouldn't have the third quarter for us to be able to project on how we can do the budget. But I guess my question is, if we don't have any authority to do the budget, so what difference do it make? Because we don't have authority, and they keep telling me you can take money away, but you can't put money in, so what's our power? And that's the question I kept asking. I said, so what can we do and what can't we do?
Okay.
And so I just didn't understand that. I just think that maybe they could give us a rough estimate to kind of say this is what we foresee to be happening in the future to the end of the year, and then we can start looking at those numbers.
All right,
Yeah.
okay. I personally would like to hear from Mr. Payne.
Joe, I have a couple questions.
Well, if you have questions of the sponsor,
And of timelines and the sponsor. And
I
so-
think Mr. Payne might have some of the timeline answers we're looking
Well-
for, is what I'm saying.
I mean, so this is, but it becomes board bill number 1. So it gets introduced on the first day of the new legislative session. Is that 90 days out?
Well,
And-
that's why I'm
and-
trying to get Mr.
okay,
Payne up here
and
to
then-
give
and
us
then-
the information.
Then I did want to make a comment, but still yet, and that had to do with, and maybe Alderman Oldenburg doesn't understand, but right now, we can take from somewhere, we can recommend where it goes. What this does is gives us the authority to say, at least that's my understanding, I could be told differently, to say that if, say the fire department says we need more money, like last year, you know, I wanted to take away from, whatever that is upstairs, Ann Chancellor's office, and I felt like that money could be better used other places.
Got one more?
So even though I cut it, it got put back because we basically, and that's the deadline of saying if we don't pass this, whatever comes down is what, it just goes in effect the way it is.
That's correct.
So, and maybe I'm wrong, and you can tell me if I'm not, but
No,
I
you're
think this,
absolutely right.
this gives us the authority that if I wanna take money from somewhere and put it somewhere, it's gonna go there. It's not gonna be a recommendation that becomes a bargaining chip. You know, and the other question, which would be the timeline, because it is board bill number 1, and I don't know.
Well, and that's, I think we
You
need
know,
some,
and that, so I just wanna make, in case Alderman Oldenburg didn't understand the budget process, I thought I'd mention it.
with the
Thank you,
spon-
Joe.
Okay.
You're
Will
very
the sponsor allow Mr. Payne to come speak as Alderman Muhammad?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get his take on this, and I think it might give us all the information or more information we need. You're welcome to stay there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the
Please,
committee.
I know we all know you, but we have to,
Yeah, make that
Is this my
call.
design?
Wait a minute.
it's the Star Wars chairs we have here.
It's on this side, there you
Oh,
go.
I like that.
Now you go, there you go.
Okay, Paul, please announce yourself for the cameras and everything.
Yes, my name's Paul Payne. I'm the city's budget director. I guess I'll start with a little bit of history. I joined the budget division in '88, and that was the first year in which the current budget amendment per the charter, which was passed in '87, took effect, and that was actually a transition year. And I can tell you, anytime just along these, in my estimation, it was probably the best charter reform provision that we passed in the last 40 years, simply because two things you can be assured of. One is that you will have a balanced budget, and two, that balanced budget will be passed by July 1st. Prior to this amendment being passed in '87, what you had is continuing budget deliberations that went past the first of the fiscal year, and it went as long as November. And I don't know if you're familiar with the state of Illinois and their problems, but a lot of that was not having a budget in place. This ensured it was in place. And so it was a very, very significant accomplishment when it was passed in '87. And we've been abiding by it since. Now you're talking about the scheduling of the budget, as you know. The Board of Aldermen, the Board of E&A is required to present to the Board of Aldermen a recommended budget 60 days prior to the start of the fiscal year. Now, in looking, and what this is proposing is to move that up by 30 days. Now, there's a number of issues with that. Some of them have been addressed. For instance, when I'm putting the revenue estimate together for the coming fiscal year, my final adjustments will occur after receiving the third quarter revenues, which is the end of March. That's one piece of it. So basically, you're better informed in terms of projecting forward because you've got actual revenues to the third quarter. But there's also on the expenditure side, there's a lot of information that doesn't even come in until March 1st. Specifically, the circuit court's budget by state statute is due March 1st. You've got the police pension number, which is also due by March 1st. The old fire pension system is also due by March 1st. That's by state statute, those deadlines are set. These aren't small numbers. Other key items are health insurance premium comes in on March 1st. Our other insurance premiums are due by March 1st. And our other two pension systems are due by March 1st. I was looking that up, and that's almost a quarter of our general fund budget that I don't even receive or confirmed until March 1st. So by pushing that to the end of March, basically you're squeezing on the revenue information and squeezing on the expenditure information. And I understand your request for additional time, but in terms of putting the budget together, that's pretty big restriction. And then what I did do is I looked at last year's schedule, and if you recall, the board bill 1 was introduced on May 10th. Now technically, we try to get all your books ready and have them on your desk for when E&A recommends them. But technically, in order to introduce the bill, all you really need is the ordinance. You don't really actually have the hearings until the following week. So you could have, in that schedule, just looking at last year's timetable, you could have introduced it on May 3rd, which is the first Friday. That would have given you a whole nother week in the process. And then you also adjourned, I think, June 11th or 12th, and then E&A didn't meet till the following week. So you gave up a week on the end as well. So without doing anything, and in terms of the charter, you could have extended your hearings by 2 weeks right there. That's half of what you were looking at without even changing any sort of legislative change. And then finally, in terms of timetable or familiarity with the budget, and I've mentioned this to the alderman before, when we're addressing the budget, typically it's 5% margin change. 95% of that budget is the same regardless of the budget process. So you have your budget, and you have the budgets on your desk 365 days a year. You can meet anytime you want. I mean, you can July, August, in the fall, if you want to be more familiar with a particular budget, you can call a department in and go over those line items anytime. And so that in terms of familiarity, that can be had at any time. So that's, in terms of timetable, those are some of my concerns about this proposal. And then when it talks about giving the ability for the board to increase items without E&A, it mentions it shall provide that ability as long as the budget's balanced. Well, who determines that? I could see all sorts of possibilities where you feel the need to, a compelling need to add money for a particular service, and that compelling need outweighs the fiscal reality that the money is not there, or there's a revenue estimate that might be bogus, and you put that in just to make it work, then we're in a soup. I think the way it's designed right now is, and I think you underestimate your influence in terms of ways and means, because you do have the right to reduce an item. And typically what you've done is you reduce items, and that may or may not, A&A may or may not agree with, and then there's a negotiation to accommodate. And I think if you use that authority significantly, you can get items either increased or decreased in the budget as you would request, but it's a negotiation process. And that's what this current budget amendment, when it was passed in '87, has worked since, was intended to do. And so I think there's ways of addressing that within the current system. And but yeah, I couldn't. The one thing jeopardizing this issue would the budget process would be being able to tell the rating agencies every year that we will have a balanced budget and it will be passed by July 1st. If anything jeopardizes that would not be a positive development in terms of budget process.
So there could be some administrative changes where maybe quarterly, a proposal or estimated numbers could be thrown at us by request or by, in other words, if we wanted to hold a meeting in January and you could give us some raw figures that we can.
What I was suggesting is that some of it, and I appreciate, particularly those who come on Ways and Means and it's for the first time, they get a stack of books, they're not familiar with it. It's always, you can always review budgets with departments to say, hey, what's this line item for? What's this line item for? How you doing? What kind of transfers do you need? That kind of thing. That can take place any time of the year.
So we could schedule meetings where we could have you down here and go over things on a
That's right.
monthly or bi-monthly
And
basis.
we could have expenditure year-to-date reports if you need them. We could do that. And scheduling the meetings for Ways and Means for the budget process itself. Just trying to tighten that a little bit more, might be able to squeeze out 1 or 2 weeks.
And I'm kind of holding this as my question and answer period because I didn't
Sure.
ask the sponsor. My other concern, and I don't know if anybody, doing it April 1st concerned because during election cycle, for starters, we're out, and we might not be the same alderman coming back if we on April 1st, because we do have election cycles every 2 years. So that was my big concern, just as being down here, we're out for those election cycles. When we come back on April 15th, then we close out and we have brand new alderman on the 16th. So, we haven't, our committees aren't set and our things are in motion. So that's a big concern for me starting April 1st that came up. And with that, I'm gonna go around by seniority and let questions of Mr. Payne. So Alderman Vaccaro.
Well, so, I mean, I understand, I know we did an additional appropriation today for the tow truck, so I get that. I guess, and I don't care if it's 30 days, 60, 120, but what I do really feel that we need to change in the process, and maybe the timeline changes, but I still think that when we say, I want to take the money from here and put it here, it shouldn't just merely be a suggestion that that's what should happen. If this board feels that we vote on it, all of us together vote and say, this department talked to us, they need an extra supervisor. And I know Joe corrected some stuff at the end of last budget season by getting I forget what it was we needed, the inspectors, I believe it was,
Yeah.
you did after, which was fine. But I really feel, and I felt this with the police, this board is totally disrespected all the way across the board. We say, gee, we want to add 2 extra police officers, or firemen, or whatever, and we're going to take money from here, and we want it to go here. It's merely just a suggestion. I admit that money goes away, they can't put it back, but it becomes merely a suggestion. I think with this bill, and the timeline could be off, but we should have the authority, if we say we want that money, as a group, we all vote and say we want that money to go to, whether it's your office, or we feel that because we meet with all the departments, like you do, but we meet with them all. They tell us their needs, and they say, gee, you know what, we're having trouble operating, they gave us only 1 inspector, we need 3. I understand the balanced budget, so I get that we're gonna take money from somewhere. We're gonna take it from streets, or we're gonna take it from fire, police, wherever, but we're gonna take money from somewhere, only moving money around within the budget. But I think where my problem comes in is that even though we move the money, we say, gee, we need 2 more inspectors, so we're gonna take money from this department and put it here. It's just merely a suggestion, because then it goes over to E&A, they don't have to take our suggestion. And if we come to a stalemate with them, then everything we work on for 2 months, every day, day after day in, day out, long meetings, we make Joe buy pizza and chicken wings. If we don't pass that on.
You mentioned that, so I do it again.
I just threw it in there, Joe.
That's why we got it.
So, no, but and then again, all the work we do, moving money around, doing whatever, that we feel based off of talking to everyone, if E&A stalls or whatever happens, by July 1st, that budget, everything we worked on, whether it's adding more people to cut grass, because we know better. I mean, whether it's Alderman Boyd or whoever, they know the needs, and if Parks comes in and says, gee, we need more grass cutting in our neighborhood, but it's not in the budget, but we as a group feel that this is important, say more important than the whatever committees that are up there that we feel, however, I'd rather see us be able to not just suggest that we're gonna take money from there and give it to parks, or to grass cutting, and E&A say, well, you know, here, Alderwoman Boyd, we'll get you taken care of, just come talk to us later, but let's just do it like it is. That would take that out. I mean, it happens all the time. We make a suggestion, I'd like to see money go here. They say, look, just pass the budget. And we'll work it out later. And it doesn't always happen. We were told that if we add the extra money, we voted on the extra money for refuge, and I'll pull the tapes up, that our wards would no longer have to pay for dumpsters, and everybody would have nice new dumpsters. I can tell you, talking to most of us, we had to pay for dumpsters. It's let's just pass it. But, and Paul, I know that's not your thing, but I just want to say why I think something needs to be changed. I don't care if it's the 60 days versus 90, that's not my issue. My issue is, we merely say, we need it for grass cutting, they say, well, don't worry about it, we'll talk to you later. Where if we say, we're gonna take the money from here and put it to grass cutting or the trees, they can't say, no, it's not gonna go there. It would go there. And again, we're a group, and I think our authority gets smashed all the time. And I felt that yesterday very
Well,
strongly.
let me address something about what you said, and this sort of suggested with it, as though your reductions are suggestions.
They are.
Your
well,
suggestions are not, let me,
okay.
about this process. Your reductions are not suggestions. Reductions are reductions.
Right,
Regardless of what
But-
E&A does, you have the authority to reduce the budget.
right.
And so what typically happens is, you all get together and you say, we'd like to see additions to the budget here.
And those are
Which
suggestions.
those are suggestions to
They
E&A,
don't
which you'd have to
necessarily
opine
put-
on.
and-
But the reductions are reductions.
Right, I understand.
And that's what gives you that authority, that's what gives you the ability to negotiate with the Board of E&A. So, now when E&A, when we take your recommendations at the end of that process, and we go to E&A, and the E&A will say, okay, we see some need here, and we'll accommodate part, maybe not all of whatever this request was, but this reduction's really sort of hurts, and we'd like to point it back. And so they come back here with a recommendation that's been adjusted. Now, you may or may not accept some of those adjustments. I mean, you could always say, well, we really want more here, and we're gonna keep this reduction here. That's your authority.
It is, but if July 1st comes, and they feel, okay, well, we just won't vote on it over there, then that budget comes to us the way it did, Paul. Ours, I agree, it's not a suggestion when we take it out. It could be because they could refuse to hear
They
stuff.
can't.
No, they can't put it back. They could not take our suggestion where it goes. And so it's not gonna go where we want it to. On July 1st, if we can't agree on everything, that budget just automatically, so all the work we did, the grass cutting, the extra ambulances, whatever, just don't happen, and then the budget comes the way it is.
And that's happened, in all my years, I believe that's happened once in those 30 plus years.
But I just wanted to get my feelings out, is that, and understanding that we can take away, they can't put back. We could take away from the mayor's office, we could take our whole staff away if that's what we wanna do. I doubt they would pass it. We could take the Board of Aldermen, I get that. But we don't have the authority to put it back. We can only suggest this is where we'd like to see it go. These are just my feelings. I mean, I don't have any problem with the 90 or 60 day.
Okay.
I would like to see something that gives us more authority that when we say this is where we want the money to go as a collective group, that's where the money should go. It shouldn't be a negotiation.
Well, actually, I was gonna say, it should be a negotiation. That's basically what it is. I mean, you've got the Board of E&A negotiating with the Ways and Means Committee, negotiating on what they think. Otherwise, in this scenario, if you can increase without going back to E&A, then you wouldn't have to negotiate. So, I mean, it's a two sides to
It
that
goes back to
coin.
Mr. Oldenburg saying, either, the only way to do what you wanna do is get rid of the board and E&A. Cause you
No.
don't wanna negotiate, you're just saying, say, this is the way we
We're-
want it.
We're saying on the budget, what I'm saying on the budget, what I'd like to see is when we ask for something, because we sit here, Joe, you know, as a group, and they call us on the phone individually. You'll get a call from Forestry, you'll get a call from here and there. We know our needs of our neighborhoods way more than E&A or the mayor knows, because we live it. You know, you get the calls. Hey, Alderman Valmer, we're not getting our parks cut properly. Or, hey, Alderman Valmer, the lights aren't getting fixed properly. E&A's not aware.
That doesn't happen in my ward.
No, I know, but in your ward, they get everything. But in my
He
ward,
say you get everything.
he does. No, but understand that the aldermen get the most calls and have the most understanding.
That's our job.
So if I sat on E&A, let's just say I ran for president of the board or mayor, what do I know about Pam Boyd's needs in her ward?
What does anyone who runs for office know?
I-
All you have
well,
to do is get elected.
I understand. So, but who better than Pam
Education.
or Tamika or John or you, who better than us know the needs of our neighborhood more than anybody?
I don't think anyone's arguing that, Joe.
No, so what I'm saying is
What we're dealing with is budget professionals
Well, the-
who are trained, and I don't know how many
No,
of us are CPAs.
this isn't against the budget. This isn't the budget, Joe.
I understand.
We all have the same thing. We have a certain amount of money at home. You decide whether you're going on vacation or you're doing whatever. We're not trying to, I appreciate Paul. I call Paul
We're
for
dealing
questions
with a
all
pool
the
of money
time.
that's left after everything else that must be taken care of, has to be taken care of by law. And then we're making our wish list, trying to take care of our constituents.
Right.
And trying to do it subjectively and fairly. So at that point, again, it's always gonna be a negotiation as long as there's two bodies. One body and the other body, there's no way to avoid the negotiation process.
I would just like to see more of what we,
I think if we get more input on maybe a quarterly basis, like we're talking about, where we would have Paul come before us
but
and say, this is where we're at right now, I'm willing to hold the meetings and have him give us a proposal where we're at in October, where we're at in January, and that maybe we'd have more information at that point when it comes to, May 1st, so we're better informed.
No, I understand. I'm saying during the process of passing Board Bill 1 out, I agree that later we can come back and do appropriations. We did one today for the tow trucks. In the negotiation of Board Bill number 1, we try to make sure that different needs for our neighborhoods are taken care of.
Sure.
We can take away, we can say, look, we don't think they need all this money in this department, so we could take it away from there. They can't put it back. But we can only merely suggest
Where it's going.
where it's going. That's what I'd like to see tightened up. I'd like to see it actually go, because, again, the mayor and Lewis and all, I like them all. But they don't particularly come to my neighborhood to know the needs, and we do as aldermen.
I understand, but all, of the 28 of us, we all have different needs, and
understand.
you're sitting on a board
But
that only
we-
has typically 6 to 7 or
But
8 of us deciding the needs for the
But-
other 21 who aren't in the room at the same time.
But, Joe, if all
So
aldermen.
you can't just think of your ward, her ward, my
No,
ward,
no,
or
so
your
if
ward.
all the aldermen show up, you're gonna let them speak, right, and talk about their needs?
That's fine, Joseph.
So we negotiate here.
Okay.
Anyway, I just want to get what my
Okay.
feelings were, and it's really
All
not a
right, well,
question, it's just my
Well,
feelings.
we've heard your feelings, let's move on. Alderman Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you because I feel like we're in a space where you're teaching us what our power is, and it's almost as if nobody knows what power we do have, and I don't know how things have gone in the past with maybe some of our senior aldermen, but I would like to see like how that negotiation process actually works. I know we had the forms, we, added stuff in, added stuff out, but who's the person that's actually talking to ENAs? That you, Mr. Chairman?
It can be any of us. Any of us are welcome to
I mean,
it.
how has it happened in the past? Because like these hard negotiations that I feel like we can do, maybe I don't have knowledge of what that process is. How does that process look?
As far as, by the time it gets to me, I've had open discussions, not at the ENA, but meeting with the mayor's staff,
Okay.
meeting with and trying to go over, talking to Paul, getting a feel for what's going on and where it's at. That's when we first started last year. It was actually, like I said, it was a much less contrived than the year before, where it was so heated.
Yes.
Where we had things that,
We did.
and we had a good year, and we're probably gonna have a better year with the Blues and the Cardinals going this year. We have some extra tax revenue. So, if the Blues can do it again. So, and I think it's what you're discussing, and what I keep hearing, and what I heard, during our budget, and it's what I wanted to bring out, I've been thinking about is trying to get us together as a board, just for discussion, with maybe no bills, just for presentations, so, because I felt like I kept hearing that people didn't know enough about the
Right,
process.
right.
So I think if we can get a quarterly review of where we're at and because Gerard and Paul can, they're trained experts, they can keep us apprised of where we're at and what we need to go, and we have a better feel for what, and we can discuss, those things and keep our, when we come to next May 1st, we're all sitting here going, okay, we feel empowered.
And I definitely think that would be a good idea, because like if we're meeting quarterly, you can forecast a little bit to see like, okay, well, we've had this particular issue this year, so refuse may need more money. I know that information is out there, so I think that would be helpful for us to get updates. So if this bill goes through, or if it doesn't, then we are better informed. And you said that 95% of was the number 95% of the budget
Yeah,
is
well-
kind of written in stone?
Well, it's not written in stone, but my point on that was, basically, when you're looking at any given year, you're talking about just on the margins, what the changes are in the budget. The
And
bulk
the
of the
other-
budget
right.
remains unchanged, so.
And so the other 5%, that's usually comprised of what?
Oh, it might be some new initiative, it might be something in capital that we're doing, it could be a variety of things, programs that were not in the previous year but are new for the current going for fiscal year, that kind of thing.
Okay. And so, like, as some of those projections may come in, I think, like, if we had information to know that, okay, we have a World Series and we're gonna get an uptick in earnings tax. If we kind of know some of those numbers, then we can start making plans and say, okay, well, maybe we wanna add some more money to demos or something like that. So I think it would be good for, us to meet more.
Sure.
And Lord, I hate meetings, but I would like to be better informed.
I assume this at, at kind of a late date last year, so that's why it's just going over this, because all of a sudden, aldermen started leaving.
Right.
The seniority jumped up, so it's been a learning process this year for this past session, so that's the point there.
That's all I have.
All right, Alderman Murphy.
I guess no questions. Reiterate what Alderman from the 5th said. The departments best know what they need, and so they ask for what they need, and they best know that. They run them, not us. I don't know how to run streets and whatnot. And then we also know, if anybody's ever done any budgeting or negotiate with your children over allowance or anything, you shoot for the stars. So there's room to negotiate. And so I think that's what is already in there also. And I like the idea of perhaps us meeting, more and getting some
Just information,
info
yes.
out on there, so we don't, but I also understand that we have to work within the numbers that are there, But anyway, that's all, just a comment. Thank you, Paul.
All right, Alderman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to echo my colleague from the 23rd in commending this exploration, because we do have a phenomenal budget director and a budget department that is very transparent, I think. We've all agreed on that. The sponsor of this bill has talked about that extensively in previous hearings. I think we're all happy with how transparent the budget process is. But I'd also like to commend the initiative here. We've all leaned on the fact that the Board of Aldermen doesn't have full budgetary authority, and it's problematic for us when we do identify issues in our communities. You know, we often get asked, you know, why don't we have more trash trucks? You know, why aren't we cutting down trees? And, you know, why can't we have more budget towards various departments? And, you know, in neighborhood meetings, I'm constantly saying, well, we don't have the authority to add budgetary items. And that's problematic, and I would imagine it's fairly unusual. What I'd like to ask of the budget director, maybe if you could help us understand how we fit into the way things are done in other cities, the budget process is handled. I do think that the legislative bodies have some additional authority, maybe that we don't have. It would be good to take a look at that. I think this conversation, regardless of how this particular bill ends up, is one that's really worthwhile having. I think opening up the conversation about where the frustrations in the budget process are, where they originate, how we can start solving them is extremely important, because regardless of whether or not we end up having additional authority to put this to the voters, already what's come out of this is the idea of having additional hearings and taking a look at the budget process throughout the year in a more constructive manner. So I really applaud this, and I think this has been a good exercise, and I think we should continue to explore what additional authority to the Board of Aldermen might look like, because we certainly have the appearance to the general public of having authority budget in the budget that we do not currently have, and it's very, very frustrating. The timing obviously has been pointed out by the budget director to be a problem. I do think that the chairman here has conducted, I was very impressed with the process. This was my first time serving on Ways and Means. It was very frustrating, but it was certainly very well organized, and I did feel like we had a lot of communication with the budget department outside of this. But again, I recognize that the need for a bill like this in this discussion, because we really should consider having more authority here at the Board of Aldermen to have a say, proactive say in where our money goes. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Thanks, Paul. Is the legislative branch represented on the Board of E&A?
President of the board.
Okay,
Yes.
right, great. Okay, so there is some authority that exists from the legislative branch on the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. I think that's important in this process, and I'm not trying to get sideways here with the concepts that are being discussed, Alderman. I would explore the possibility of a charter change of doing away with the three-headed monster of the Board of E&A and come up with some shared authority arrangement. I think it varies to the Alderman from the 20th Ward. I think it varies across cities. Sometimes the budget process starts with the mayor or the executive. Sometimes it starts in the legislative process. So I would explore the opportunity where there could be more, not perceived authority, but actual authority from the legislative branch, by all means. I don't think this bill achieves that. Now, it's a step towards a conversation, in my opinion. And on the financial side, Mr. Payne, I mean, right, the city still has continued long-term challenges around a looming recession that we know is coming, right? The inability to grow revenue, right, to grow our revenue, and long-term capital needs that are not going away.
Right.
In your professional opinion, does this bill address any of those financial crises?
Yeah, but this bill just addresses process more than.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. I have no further questions.
All right. Alderman Boyd.
I have no question.
All right. Okay, so, again, yeah, my concerns were the timeline, without the information coming in, till March 1st, to get it, and also the concern I raised earlier about during election cycles, when we're out, and the aldermen who started aren't gonna be the aldermen who come together in April, that happens every 2 years. So the timing of it, to a certain point, it throws it off. As I mentioned before, I don't plan on entertaining a vote. I would like to let everyone kind of absorb the information they got today, and come up with some more ideas, and if we can bring this back up in a week or so, if the sponsor so, whatever day he desires, if we need to have meetings, to see if there's maybe a better way to put this together, if there's administrative changes we make. If there's a charter change looming in here, we'll see if we can find one. But with that, I'll let the sponsor, if you'd like to respond to any of these, Alderman Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board Bill 101 only addresses the budget process, not budgetary issues that exist in the city. So we can sit here and we can talk about all the looming factors about our budget, but that's not what this board bill does. This is simply about process. Yes, the legislative branch is represented on the Board of ENA, but that does not mean the legislative branch has a voice on the Board of ENA or has actual input. You know that, Alderman. North St. Louis is represented on the Board of ENA too, by all three who represent my community in North St. Louis, and we still don't have a voice or input. There's still no transparency. So this is about the budget process. And when you compare our budget process with other cities of our size and of our government structure, somewhat or in some shape or form, that's something similar, we do not have the power that we should as a legislative branch to determine what our budget process looks like. Of course, throughout the year, we can make supplemental appropriations. Those, as we just did with Alderman Boyd's bill, those supplemental appropriations can either be enforced or not. A lot of times when we do supplemental appropriations, they're not enforced. I did 2 supplemental appropriations for our circuit attorney. They have not been enforced yet. So we could talk about what we can do throughout the year, and we could talk about that we don't know what the numbers look like. Our budget is continuously being updated based off revenue projections throughout the budget process. Departments send in what they think they need. The budget director, ENA, they come to a certain number. It's all based off projections, it's all based off data. And matter of fact, a lot of departments, and I believe it was your senior analyst and you who told me this, a lot of departments, when they call in and submit their budget, they say, give me what I had last year, unless the department has a new initiative. Most of the time it's, yeah, give me what I have last year. So we do have some type of concrete number to base our budget off for the next fiscal year. And no, I don't think Board Bill 101 is perfect, but it's a starting stone. I'm all for making it perfect or perfecting it as we can. And again, I think our budget director does a perfect job, and I have never once said he does not.
All right, with, if there's nothing else, what I'd like to do is conclude this, and we'll take all this information and see if we can come up with, you know, and another thing. With that, I will excuse the alderman from the Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Shamim Hubbard, and Alderwoman Howard for a necessary absence.
One last question.
What, Paul, I'm sorry, what we're still
What are your soccer stadium projections? How much do you think that will impact our budget?
I have not even.
They're building hotels everywhere. I think we headed in the right direction in the city as far as revenue.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
There you go.